welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. The Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act of 2016 is coming soon, plus patenting censorship. But first, James, I noticed you tweeted out kind of a trio of stories a couple of days ago that all kind of centered around what is essentially science fraud. And I'll take the one that I think maybe informs not only the other two stories, but perhaps in some ways this whole episode of New World Next Week. And it comes via Nature, and their original title of the article was Survey Sheds Light on Crisis Rocking Research. More than 70% of researchers have tried and failed to reproduce another scientist's experiments, and more than half have failed to reproduce their own experiments. There are some of the telling figures that emerged from Nature's survey of 1,576 researchers who took a brief online questionnaire on reproducibility in research. The data reveals sometimes contradictory attitudes towards reproducibility, although 52% of those surveyed agree that there is a significant crisis of reproducibility. Less than 31% think that failure to reproduce published results means that the result is probably wrong, and most say that they still trust the published literature. Data on how much of the scientific literature is reproducible are rare and generally bleak. The best-known analyses from psychology and cancer biology found rates of 40% and 10%, respectively. So the headline of this article, James, that we grabbed from our buddy Doug at Blacklisted News, 40% of scientists admit fraud always or often contributes to irreproducible research. So, James, the two other articles get into misleading the public about GMOs and the Portland Public School Board banning books that deny climate change. James, what kind of brought you to tweet all three of these stories together?
Well, I just saw the cluster of these stories and stories about there was a British doctor coming out and saying that the low-fat craze of a decade or two ago was one of the worst mistakes in human health history. And I saw you tweeted out recently a story talking about health foods and how healthy eating has been all of the dietary nutrition guidelines that they put out for decades have been wrong, talking about trans fats versus saturated fats versus polyunsaturated fats. And I think this circles around some ideas that are extremely important in the bigger picture. One of which is that I think that this story about irreproducible research and the scientists who back it up, I think they have a point, because this goes to the Thomas Kuhn's idea about paradigms being the operative paradigm under which scientists work, which is, as long as it's within this framework of what our current understanding of what the general rules of this area of research are, then we might not be able to exactly reproduce this experiment, but we can explain it away because, maybe this variable was a little bit different or that variable was a little bit different. So scientists are still working within a paradigm, and as long as they can conform their results to that paradigm, they can explain away to themselves, if no one else, the fact that they can't reproduce their own research, which shows that fundamentally this isn't about reproducibility in the sense that we're taught that is the bedrock of experimental science.